That doesn't help. Okay, thanks. Well, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good to see so many of you here. I would have thought, actually, you're probably sick of panel debates by now. But fortunately, we do not have a Nigel Fromage on the panel. But we do hope that people will be as controversial as Nigel. So what I'd like to start by as saying is my name is Steve Blood. I am a Gartner analyst. I focus on unified communications and especially the growing capabilities in unified communications as a service. We have some esteemed colleagues here, which I would like them to introduce themselves because I have not remembered their names, so they would like to introduce themselves, and that will be a lot better for you.
Very good, Steve. My name is Bryan Martin. I'm the Chairman and Chief Technology Officer of 8x8 Incorporated, and we have a UK subsidiary called 8x8 Solutions, offices here in London and Aylesbury. We are a cloud-based service provider, a variety of business communication services.
Yes, my name is Chris Hurley. I'm the VP of Corporate Development at Thinking Phones. We're also a UC provider. We focus on enterprise customers. We have an office in London. Our headquarters, our European headquarters is in Amsterdam, and we're growing like crazy here, so we're excited about the market.
Yes, my name is Curtis Peterson. I'm the Senior Vice President of Global Operations for RingCentral, another UC player. Our EMEA headquarters is here in London, and we're facilities built private centers are in Amsterdam and Zurich.
And my name is Szpilfogel, and until recently I was the chief architect at Mitel. Now I'm the general manager of the SMB devices team. And Mitel does basically cloud. We do all kinds of cloud services. We also do prem. We make phones and endpoints for cloud services. And pending an acquisition, we're also in the mobile cloud space.
Vishy Gopalakrishnan, I'm with AT&T. I have product responsibilities for our unified communications and collaboration portfolio.
Thank you very much, all. And of course, you know, as you can tell from the accents, a lot of our colleagues here are from the other side of the pond, and they've got all this debate thing to go through very, very soon. So we wish you well with that. It'll be very interesting. I'm going to be open to questions. So should anybody be bold enough to ask a question and have something on their mind, we'll be happy to receive it and to make the interaction very, very useful for everybody here. I was going to start, I think, with something that's quite topical around the idea really of the question around how important is mobile in the overall UC as a service proposition. I'm going to start with Christian. I got that, yeah, Christian at Mitel because of the pending acquisition. Yeah. Mitel's an enterprise player. What are you doing with mobile, Christian? What validity do you have in that space?
That's a good question, right? So I think, is there anybody here, I'd like you to raise your hand if anybody in this audience does not have a mobile phone. All right, that's what I thought. So, and I bet you a number of people have more than one. There's a transition, Steve, that's going from basically people are going from fixed devices to mobile devices. In the meantime, most people are getting 2 devices, but in the long term, we see that people are fundamentally moving to mobile technology, and with 5G technology, that really kind of enables people to move towards mobile communication right in the business and the enterprise. So what we're seeing is that with that shift, that people need to be able to get full business services on their mobile devices, not just a over-the-top type solution, but actually integrated in the way that you'd expect any mobile phone to work, right, at a fully integrated feature set. So that was one of the reasons that we were planning to do this acquisition.
Yeah. Vishy, AT&T, this is your domain, isn't it? This is AT. Surely you're going to trance all these players because of your strength in mobile.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Christian. You know, there's obviously a big trend, you know, smartphone adoption in the enterprise. The way we as individual consumers, the way we transact, we collaborate with family members, friends outside of work. If you look today in the enterprise, there's a pretty significant gulf between what we do in terms of collaboration and communication outside the enterprise, family and friends, versus how it's done within the enterprise. Outside the enterprise, it's significantly mobile first. It's relatively frictionless. But the moment you start trying to apply some of those same modalities of communication collaboration within the enterprise, you run into a little bit of a brick wall, tremendous amount of friction, the mobile experiences are not necessarily the best, right? So I think we at AT&T look at this as a tremendous opportunity in terms of helping enterprises address that gulf between what we as individual end users experience when we say, oh, but wait a minute, I can use all of these wonderful capabilities in my personal life. How come when it comes to collaboration and communication, I can't? You put these constraints around me, whether it's in terms of security, the modality I want to use, the ease of transition between IM presence, web, video, etc., and just overall user experience as well.
Thank you very much. Let's pick on one of these other guys here. Chris, I've seen some very interesting applications from thinking phones in terms of support on mobile devices. Without a network for mobile, how does thinking phones play in this space?
Well, we have a mobile-first strategy, and we think, I would ask kind of the same question. How many people here go to their desk phone first in their work, or they're going to their mobile device? And that's what we see. So we do have a mobile-first strategy. We focus on customers that are larger. In Europe, probably 100 employees and above. In the US, probably 500 employees and above. So our typical customer has a managed network. So inside the company, they do have a managed network, which has a high quality of service. But the user experience has to be the same when you leave the building. So it's about the user experience, it's about the application, and that application giving you everything that you need, exactly as Vishy points out, in your personal life, but that same experience for your work life and having that integrated with all of your company's systems. Because you can't just move to the mobile and cut the cord to all of your business processes. It's a very difficult thing to transition your enterprise communications and leave all that process behind. So you have to bring that into the fold, but deliver it on a mobile device in a way that people can use whenever, wherever, whether it be inside the company in a managed quality experience or outside the company over the top.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the audience? A bit at this point. Okay, let me continue for you. I'm now going to turn to Bryan and to Curtis. Unified communications is more than telephony. It's more than voice. It's about video. It's about messaging capabilities. Bryan, without a network access in Europe, how are you going to provide all of those? Video takes a lot of bandwidth. How are you going to provide those capabilities, especially across the mobile network as well for your users? How's that going to pan out?
Great question.
For your customers?
Steve, we've been an over-the-top provider our entire existence, and back in the old days, we all remember DSL, data circuits, unreliable, packet loss, lots of latency, lots of inconsistency. The UK market, even a few years ago, had that same issue. And you learn to deal with it by controlling both sides of the connection. Make sure the endpoint technology is self-aware, is self-healing, that you're collecting the analytics you need to solve those issues. And when we get to the mobile networks, we see the exact same challenges today. You see packet loss, the codecs are getting better. So I've been on calls with Vodafone this week. People could barely hear me. I switch over to the 8x8 client. We're using ILBC, which can deal with the packet loss. We're using Opus, which auto-scales itself. Much better connections, but it's not an enterprise-grade client. I'd agree with everything said here. And so I think it'll take a little bit of time, but I do see more and more of our enterprise customers who want to cut the cord to the desk. They want to use that phone. We're a little early on that stage of getting there, but I think the over-to-the-top providers will be able to do it just as well as the incumbent carrier networks.
Thank you. Christian, SVP of Curtis, SVP of, I knew I was going to make a mistake eventually. Curtis, as SVP of Operations, how do you see that panning out for RingCentral? And I guess you're an over-the-top provider as well. Is a similar approach to 8x8 maybe?
Yeah, very similar. We've been an over-the-top provider since our beginnings as well. And to echo a lot of our colleagues over here, it's very much about controlling both sides of the connection, self-aware, self-healing. Some of the new codecs are helpful. Some of that technology can work for and against you, as Opus and other codecs are still heavy on processing and can hurt battery life and things like that. So our applications are aware of what that network quality is then and can switch to more efficient codecs back to less efficient codecs when the network's not as well. We find another good strategy is partnering with some of the carriers in the world and making sure that we're involved in their future network planning and how we can best use what they provide best in the markets, and that's that QoS, the spectrum, and the digging up the ground and providing that good fat broadband. And we know that our existence is dependent on that piece as an over-the-top player, but we don't rely on it exclusively to control our quality.
Very interesting. Vishy, over the top, isn't that a dirty word in AT&T?
No, I mean, Curtis and I were chatting. We've been actually partnered with RingCentral going back to, I'm trying to think here, about 8 years ago almost. And I think we were the first carrier that RingCentral partnered with, if I'm not mistaken. So I think our approach is, we have to do what's best for especially, I deal with enterprise customers. If it's over the top, then as Curtis said, we work with RingCentral to figure out how best to make sure that the end user experience is what it needs to be. So I don't think it's as binary as some would make it out to be, especially in the enterprise space. A lot of the applications are definitely over the top. So I think our thinking has definitely evolved. If we don't meet what enterprise customers need, then we're not relevant anymore. So it goes to how can we be relevant? How do we team with folks like RingCentral to make sure we deliver the best experience? So I don't think it's that binary as it used to be anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like in many cases the network provider is a key piece to the overall delivery of UC as a service. So Christian, who am Mitel partnering with?
Well, we're doing over 1 million cloud seats now, right? And so we've partnered with a number of players. In the US, for example, actually AT&T is also a partner of ours. They're reselling some of our products to the large enterprise, such as State of Florida, United States Postal Service are common customers of ours. We also have our own network in the US. In the UK, we partner with a number of providers. Just because we're here, I won't single them out. And in the Nordics, we partner with guys like Tele2, TeliaSonera, et cetera, et cetera. So quite a few partners in a variety of different places.
Okay, thank you very much. Question from the audience. Yes. Here we go. Comes the mic.
Thank you very much. The question is, if you work in an enterprise, you will usually try to reach people in the way they like to be reached. And as much as unified communications is a good tag, there are people that I know I can reach better if I use application X or application Y. And I know that, for example, when I want to send something, I would probably use cloud service for storage A or cloud service for storage B instead of using my email, because it gives me just 10 megabytes, let's say, of what I can send before it starts complaining. So how unified communications are really, and is there really the one platform that solves a problem, or is it more about how to make my experience as an enterprise user unified?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
please.
take that. Yeah, I think you're right, and there are two sides, two constituencies that you have to please. Is one, the actual user, and making sure that their experience is a good experience, and that they can get what they need and communicate with whom they need to with the right tool at the right time. The other side of it is that the company has to have access to this information, because ultimately everybody is using this as an employee of the company. So you have to give the company the tools to be able to manage a system and have visibility across all users and understand what's going on in their business. Because a big part of this is just moving your old system into the cloud isn't really that interesting or relevant. I mean, who really cares about that? What is important is to get more, to get something better. And what we really focus on is that experience, but also the analytics, so that you as a user have what you need to have in the way you want to have it, whether it be text, IM, video, however it be. But the company can then look across what's happening, whatever's going on, to be able to improve process and to assist you in doing your job better, whether it be with relationships or better tools. But if you kind of go off the reservation or go rogue, you're doing something that they have no idea what you're doing or how you're doing it. So they can't really improve for the rest of the company if everyone kind of goes and does their own thing. If I can just give one quick example of that. We have a large customer in the US that there are about 22,000 people, And they realized that about 15% of their business was being done on text message. And they had no idea what was going on. There's certainly compliance issues with PCI compliance. There are lots and lots of issues. So by implementing our platform, they were able to take control of that and have it be a company-run system as opposed to individual people's mobile devices. So that's I think hopefully that's a good answer to the question.
So your question is a place that I was a few years ago as well, because we started using an awful lot of our own cloud service, not just ours, but other people's, and we're bringing them into the business. And for the last 10, 15 years, Mitel used to try and do all of its own unified communications capabilities, all the pieces that go together. But then, to your point, when you start taking a look at all these individual cloud services that are coming up, not just in a best of breed capacity, but that are dealing with pieces that are not really core to the way that we do business, but they still have to come together. The question is how you put that together. So we've started to evolve our own technology to say, we don't just provide everything, we start to work with those other partners, and then we provide pieces to be able to aggregate it. So that's kind of at one level. So for example, we will never do CRM software such as Salesforce.com, right? But you want Salesforce.com to be integrated with the rest of your UC solution. So we do things like that to bring that together. So that's effectively at one level of aggregation. The next piece is how you do the acquisition, especially if you're doing, from buying this stuff and it's coming from disparate sources, who's putting this all together? And there's a concept that's been slowly evolving, effectively called a cloud brokerage, if you will, right? And they take different forms in terms of buying, buying vehicles, such as AT&T, for example, could be a proxy for a cloud brokerage in the big scheme of things. Sprint in the US attempted to do this as well. But fundamentally what's happening is a way for people to be able to go to a store or an ecosystem to be able to buy these things in an aggregate fashion where you can expect there's going to be some level of integration. So I think that's kind of the next stage of what's happening. And then from there you get to the simplification stage, right, in terms of trying to make it really easy. So there's still a long ways to go on all this stuff, right? And there's going to be a lot of self-roll, and integrators are going to have to still be able to put stuff together in the short term.
Brian, any views to make?
Yeah, a couple things. I definitely agree the analytics, be aware that those platforms are just going to cover that. I think directory management, right, as a topic, because IT professionals, we have too many directories to manage as it is, so I don't need another one from my provider, this provider, that provider, right? Then I got a lot of directories and I'm trying to piece those together. What helps though is the single sign-on technologies, the integration that we can do with RESTful APIs is making that world a lot more seamless. So you're able to share directory information across applications, you're able to launch applications from within Salesforce, from within NetSuite natively, and that really helps you start to tie those solutions together. One area we've really focused on is mashing up the contact center though with the corporate enterprise. That's an integration where I think because of the shared presence, because of shared click-to-call, there's a lot of features that you lose if you're going to split those vendors. So you kind of have to figure out how you want to slice and dice it, how it fits you strategically. But I think the space is really starting to evolve where all these cloud services are starting to work together.
Okay. Vishy has a point here, and then we do have another question, so we'll get you very, very quickly, sir.
Yeah, Vishy, I just want to kind of connect some of the dots. I think, so there's one dimension, which is what you mentioned, the user experience part of it, which is, how do I interact? How do I communicate with somebody, right? Whether it's, I want to share a file, I want to initiate a task, I want to collaborate on an activity. And I think the user should be able to do whatever they want, right? That is distinct and separate from all of the different kind of technical and operational considerations that have been raised here. Directory management, permissioning, credentialing, contact center integration, the procurement part of it, right? So those need to be distinct because I think you don't want to expose all of the different kind of technical pieces of infrastructure, how they come together to the end user. Because all the end user wants to do is, I want to do a job. There is a business process that needs to go from here to here. So I think we see at AT&T, as we work with obviously partners, some of them are on this podium, our stress is very much on the integration behind the scenes, so these can be delivered as a seamless cloud service with relatively kind of seamless integration across them, but the focus on the end user experience, right? So I think those two need to be separated.
Thank you. Can you all hear us okay? Because this show is absolutely buzzing. I can hear lots in my ears. Are you coming across okay? Do we need to speak up a little bit? Or okay, good. So question towards the back there, sir.
Yeah, as we're moving forward and UC as a service and primarily mobile, where are you and where do you think the industry's going with two-factor authentication? It's one thing to be able to access the product, but you have to access it securely. For companies where users don't know their password, and they've got a mobile device, and they've got specific solutions, where do you see that trending? And also as BYOD.
So this is more a question about the sort of broader consumerization, access to multiple applications and service and support. Okay, that's a really great question because it's something I had in my mind I was thinking about. Certainly when I talk with clients about unified communications as a service, one of the key elements that comes up is around, well, how are these guys going to manage my infrastructure and service better than I do? And I see that as quite a challenge. So Chris, you mentioned earlier about some tools you had to provide end-to-end management. Where does your service level, end-to-end service level, start and stop for thinking phones?
Well, I think we can come to that, but I think what we see with most of our customers is they come to us and say, listen, we have so many different things that we're trying to manage that we don't really have the staff to manage it effectively. You know, we've moved to Salesforce, we've moved to Workday, we've moved to ServiceNow, so we've moved to all of these tools. So we are, and again, I think we're hearing this here as well, is that the plan or the goal is to deliver the best quality network or delivery infrastructure to then outsource to software and application partners to be able to bring the application to bear. And to that end, you know, we leverage APIs. We have a very rich web services API suite. In terms of sign-on, the user experience is not only about you know, how you interact with the application, but actually how you start using it. And you know, the experience should be the same whether you're on your mobile device, your laptop, your tablet, whatever it is. So we have single sign-on. There are back-end APIs that integrate with, you know, kind of all the corporate systems, and that's handled, you know, with the corporate IT department who are, you know, integrating, and there are various levels of their out-of-the-box connectors that we have for Salesforce and Microsoft and Workday, ServiceNow, et cetera. And the corporate IT department then, if they have internal applications, will work to integrate with those APIs in a very standard way.
Okay, thanks. And so just coming to these three guys here have all confessed that they are partners. AT&T partners with both Mitel and Thinking Phone. So, sorry, RingCentral. Made another mistake. I hope I don't get graded on this.
I have a different name and a different company in one setting. Perfect. Putting it on my resume later.
So whose responsibility is it for the end-to-end service? Is it AT&T selling the proposition to its customers, or does that fall into the provider of the UCaaS platform? How do you guys work that out between you so that these customers can get a service level that's going to be better than what they can provide themselves?
I'll let these guys answer, and then I'll
go first. So in the particular case with AT&T, our shared partnership is operating under their logo. So AT&T has set the standard for the end-to-end care at a very high bar, and they hold us highly accountable behind the scenes, to be clear. But our interest is making sure that, one, I don't have a conversation with a single enterprise where security isn't either number one or number two on the topic list. I know as a cloud provider that this is one of the things that we have to deliver, and we have to be accountable for security in the marketplace out here. And this is where all of us, whether we're competing with each other or not, security is one place where we collaborate more than anything else. The two-factor authentication question, though, is still an issue with the end user. We have found no problem for us to implement it. We have it coded. We have it rolled out for ourselves because we have some internal requirements. But the adoption rate for the end users is very low. I'm looking forward to some of the additional technology being fully exposed in terms of some of the new two-factor using a wearable and a phone. If they're not together, they don't work. Things along this lines that make the reality of security accessible to the average user so there's not the friction of not using it. We all know what happened, this was probably 10, 15 years ago when we said, everybody must have a very complex password. How many people rolled that policy out or had that rolled out in their company? 12 digits, lots of characters, everything else. Okay, so I wrote mine on a Post-it and stuck it on my desk, right? It's not secure at all. So when we think of security and the experience, we got to think of them together and I understand as a service provider that due to the democratization of IT, that users can go out and download any app onto their phone and start collaborating, start chatting, start talking, start videoing, start whatever even the kids do today. I'm not even sure. But if my app isn't as easy to use for that or isn't as open to allow the integration between these platforms and provide the security pieces into that puzzle as well, enterprises will struggle to adopt the technology.
Wow.
Someone was happy about that.
You got a customer out there. Potential customer.
No, I think, Steve, to your earlier question, right? So from an AT&T perspective, when we work with partners, especially in the UCaaS space, the customer's expectation is that we are accountable, right? We front, whether it's the sales process, post-sale deployment, day 2 care, etc. So as Curtis mentioned, it starts early on, even in the partnership formation process, where we put our partners through a pretty rigorous, shall we say, process in terms of security, how their systems and procedures work. From an operational perspective, once we go live with the partnership, there's knock-to-knock integration, right? So when we see issues, there's kind of knock-to-knock communication going on. Our trouble ticketing systems are integrated as well. So we front a lot of those calls, level 1, level 1.5, and then if needed, we pull in from a troubleshooting perspective, right? Yeah. So we own the SLAs with the end customer.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's one model, right? So, and certainly the work that we also do with AT&T or with some of the providers here, a lot of what we'd call the incumbent carriers or the ILECs will typically want to do this as a, under their brand, their name, end to end, and that's that. If you get to some of the alternate carriers, they also like to do a different model, such as an over-the-top type model, where they'll use other people's infrastructure out of territory, because otherwise their footprint is too limited in terms of where they can actually reach. So you see a variety of different models where it may be, fully rolled, like in the AT&T case. It may be completely over the top. And then sometimes, and over the top means then that the end customer has to have the SLA associated with the broadband service and a separate one associated with the UC piece, which isn't always ideal, but works reasonably well. Okay. Right? And then you see hybrids where the CLEC will actually take a wholesale solution and wrap it up, and the UCaaS provider, right? So this is what we do in our retail side, for example, in the US, is on our retail piece is that the contract is with us. We'll deal with all the wholesaling of the carriers underneath from a variety of different carriers and give a single bundle to the end customer. So there's 3 different models that you'll see.
Thank you. And as we're running short on time, we're about to finish up here. I wanted to leave the last word to Bryan here. As you may have noticed, 8x8 recently published a guaranteed service level across the internet. I was quite impressed with that. Bryan, talk us a little bit through about that.
Yeah, so again, once you're proactively monitoring your quality, using big data analytics, rating, we rate every single phone call constantly with a MOS score. We're constantly measuring packet loss, latency, jitter, the things that affect that quality. And so we came out, not just, we've had an SLA for many years on uptime and availability, but came out with an SLA where we now guarantee our enterprise customers over any internet connection and using any codec, which is really tricky because if you do switch to 729 or something like that in a call to save bandwidth, your MOS scores suffer as a result. But guaranteeing that more than 99% of your connections will have a very good MOS score. And no one else has done it. I don't think anyone else can measure it right now, right. But we're out there doing it. I did want to follow on the security as well. So I have enterprises that do 2-stage using us. A lot of them are doing it with third-party identity service providers, so the Oktas, the OneLogins of the world, so that's another avenue to go. But also security at the media level, so make sure your provider's doing full encryption, data at rest, data in motion encryption. And you had asked an interesting question, like, why should I trust you to run the infrastructure? Are you going to do it better than me? We live it, right? We watch it 24/7. We watch it at scale. The number of dollars we've saved our customers by shutting down fraud, intrusions, people calling Nigeria, which seems to be a very popular destination, it's immeasurable. And if you were running that infrastructure, it'd be your responsibility in your pocketbook. And we take that risk for our customers as well. We're very, very good at doing it. So it's another element to consider as to why we might do it better than you.
Excellent. Well, I'd just like to, I think we're going to have to close here. I'd like to first of all thank the audience for your participation, especially the questions. I'd like to thank our panel very much for popping over here and sharing with us their views. I think my takeaway here is, as an analyst, I'm certainly becoming more positive about UC as a service, the cloud-based propositions. I think we can start looking to these suppliers either directly or through partners, as AT&T has with Mitel and think RingCentral. We can start looking to them to provide more guarantees of service. So I think it's very positive, and I'm seeing some good growth in that market there. So I wish you all well in your ventures, in your flying activities, and thank you very much for joining our panel.
Thank you, Steve.